So when we go over this, again, this being the bucket system for the AT&T Byron Nelson, I try to make these transitions somewhat seamless, but I always screw it up. This is going to be its own segment. So the bucket system for the AT&T Byron Nelson. One thing we have to talk about right from the get-go. One, tournament history versus course history. I am using tournament history. So I want you all to know that. Why I'm bringing this up, again, if you haven't watched the full preview video and you're just checking out the bucket system, if we look at the previous years that this tournament's played, we've got 2022 TPC Craig Ranch was played, 2021 TPC Craig Ranch. We're at TPC Craig Ranch, obviously. 2019, 2018, Trinity Forest Golf Club. And then prior to that, it was TPC Las Colinas. So we had 3 golf courses that span from 2013 until present day. If you wanted to use course history, you could only look at 2021 and present to the present. So we really don't have a lot of course history, for being honest. So I'm using tournament history. If you don't want to, by all means, be my guest. I have no issue with that. Here's what I would tell you. These buckets, or when I go through the bucket system, we're obviously looking at these projections. So the projections for the tournament history are right here. When I say tournament history 1 bucket, and it shows 0 to basically 2, that's what this projection would be. This is actually a bad example. The next one would be a better one. 2 to 4, tournament history 2 golfers. Instead of there being a minimum of 2, just scratch that off and make it a 0. But keep the max at 4. I think that's a perfect thing to do this week. Keep the maxes. When I go over the maxes, keep that in your head when you're building your lineups, but ignore the minimums, because the minimums take into account the success that each of these buckets holds. And essentially so too does the maximum, but the maximum is also more of a safeguard for you not to play more golfers from this bucket than you should. So that's kind of how I would look at it. I think this is still fine because, we're just taking in more information for more tournaments, or more golf courses for this tournament, basically. So I think that's fine. That's how I would look at it. But I thought there would be another thing I needed to talk about. I think that's fine. I think I was going to say we can't look at last year, but we can, because last year was the same golf course. It's not the same situation as the Wells Fargo Championship, where the year before was played at a different golf course, so we couldn't use last year buckets. We can use last year buckets this week. It's just the tournament history versus course history buckets. Those are the only things to really kind of, I guess, question. So now that we're here with the bucket system, let's go bucket by bucket, or stat by stat, and then the buckets within each of those stats. So again, if you're unfamiliar with the bucket system, there is a video link in the description of this one that gets you to a video that explains about it. Basically, all I'm doing is I'm taking a look to see what the projections are each year, or for this year, based off of the successes we've seen inside the top 10 at this event every single year. More often than not, our optimal lineup golfers are going to be inside the top 10 of this tournament. So what a better thing to do than analyze the top 10 every single year and come up with their new projections. So when it comes to last year bucket, does playing this event the year before matter? And of course, this is taking into account the entire tournament at each of the golf courses it played at. So you got to keep that in mind. That being said, I think it's an overwhelming yes. And I think a lot of it comes from the strength of field points. So having a top 20 finish at this event proves to be pretty successful. I mean, the success rate is pretty high, 16.67%. We only have 13 golfers in that bucket this week, whereas we normally see around 15. So to me, it's kind of interesting that the projection is as high as it is. The only thing I can think about would be the strength of field points, would be bumping this up, because nearly 50% of the strength of field points goes towards this bucket. So my projection's 2 to 4. However, the max projection is less than 3. So because this is less than 3, it does get boosted up to 3 because it's 2.95. So we round up to 3. That changes our minimum now down to 1. Whereas you see over here, it's 2 to 4. We round down with this bucket, we round up with that one. But because the conservative maximum projection is below 3, we drop the minimum to 1. I just went over this at the Wells Fargo Championship when I reviewed that video. Did the same thing. So really, this bucket now says 1 to 4. So keep that in mind. Now let's take a look at our last year ones. And if you want to follow along with me, remember there's a cheat sheet available. Check the link of this video, or check the description of this video for a link to the cheat sheet. You can follow along with me using the filters that are on here. I have a DraftKings filter on the Dream Sheet. Go ahead, drill down into that. And basically all we're going to do are look at last year ones. Now, last year ones are golfers who top 20'd this event last year. And we're looking at 1 to 4 golfers to be inside the top 10. I mean, that's what I'm projecting, 1 to 4 golfers be inside the top 10 within this bucket. So the first thing I automatically see is Scottie Scheffler. But we do have 4 9K golfers below that, and then we also have 4 8K golfers below that. I'm sorry, 3 8K golfers. I highlighted one extra. 3 8Ks, 4 9Ks, and then Scottie Scheffler being the highest priced guy on the slate. 1 to 4 is the projection. Here's how I would view those projections. This is something we've gone over every single week, and really 2 weeks ago is where it kind of bit us hard because we kind of took the projections, without considering salaries. So let's say Scottie Scheffler finishes inside the top 10. He's 11,900. When we look at the rest of this bucket, there are 7 other golfers $8,000 and above. How many, if you're using Scottie Scheffler golfers, can you actually put in your lineup? Like, honestly, how many golfers can you put in your lineup if you start with Scottie Scheffler from this bucket? That's something we have to consider. Even if, let's say, 4 golfers from this bucket do finish inside the top 10, how many can you still roster and take down a GPP? That is one facet to this whole thing that I've kind of ignored when I go over the previews and even my own projections, and I'm trying to figure out which golfers I want to anchor my lineups around. That's one thing I kind of forget to do, is look at the price tags. This is insane. It's very difficult. First of all, I think we're going to see at least 2 golfers, if not 3 from this bucket inside the top 10. I think that's a pretty solid projection. 2 to 3 for sure going to be inside the top 10. With that being said, how do we build a lineup if we start with Scottie Scheffler? You could only grab maybe one of these guys, especially 9K and above. You can only grab one, and then you got to skip the rest. Or you could go Scottie and then maybe Tom Hoagie and down if you wanted to grab 2 more golfers to make 3. So if you like Scottie, Davis Riley, Ryan Palmer, those 3 golfers, be my guest. I think there's no issue with that. Hard to anchor your lineups around golfer, like a team like that, where you see, Hideki Matsuyama, Tom Kim, your back-to-back defending champion, Matt Kuchar, Seamus Power, Tom Hoagie. A lot of people are going to like Seamus Power this week because a lot of the higher up guys are kind of touting him, but with good reason. I think Seamus Power is a good play this week. A lot of people do. I'm not the only person saying that. So how do you go with Scottie and at least 2 of these other guys? You probably can't. You can probably only, if you're going to go Scottie, you can only grab 1 other guy, which I think your chances are good if you're doing that. I think you're going to have a pretty decent lineup if you do it that way. There are values elsewhere. You're not this isn't a ride or die bucket where you got to make the absolute perfect choice here. I think if you wanted to start with Scottie, perfect. Again, my eyes gravitate to Scottie right away, and that's in my dummy lineup. The eyeball test started with Scottie, and I'll be honest with you, then I went to Adam Scott. Adam Scott's not on here, which is wonderful. I think Ryan Palmer's actually in my dummy lineup, if I'm being honest. I think it's him, because I go from Scottie Scotty Scheffler to Adam Scott, 9,200. And then I go into the 7K range. And I wonder, do I have Davis Riley? Let me take a look. I don't. Ben Griffin, Adam Schenk. Here's my dummy lineup. Scheffler, Adam Scott, Ben Griffin, Adam Schenk, Ryan Palmer, and Matty Schmidt. Yeah, I only see Palmer on here. And there you go. Like I said, 2 golfers. And this was without even, I just finished the bucket system before before recording this. So this was my dummy lineup. So it fits my narrative, but something you got to keep in mind. If you're looking at the projection can still be true, but you can only roster 2 guys, because if it is Scotty finishing inside the top 10, let's say there's 3 golfers from this bucket that finished inside the top 10. Let's say it's Scotty, Hideki, and let's say it's Tom Kim, just for the hell of it. Those 3 golfers, you might be able to pair up 2, but maybe you can't. You can only do 1. The only way you would go Matsuyama and Kim over starting with Scotty would be if Scotty finished like worse than 5th and Hideki or Tom Kim finished inside 5th place. That's the only time you would do it. Otherwise, anything inside 5th, I'm really cool with Scotty Scheffler unless one of these 2 wins. 2nd place, I'm not too concerned with. Like if Scotty finishes 4th or 5th and one of those guys finishes 2nd, you still have a chance to win a GPP. You'd have to be really perfect with your next 5 golfers if it's not having Matsuyama or Kim, but it still can be done. But if one of those guys wins, then that's where you're screwed. So anyways, that's a long segment on last year bucket 1, but I think it's the most important last year bucket. So I like Scheffler. Obviously, I like Scheffler. We look at the other ones, and I'm not really going to go through any of these other buckets. There's no point. It's 0 to 2 on all of them. So again, if you're on the cheat sheet, and you're in the bucket system, again, you can come here. There's a filter for this as well. You go to the bucket system and you filter by bucket. We're going to clear all of them and only select last year. So you can see what the projections are for the other buckets, bucket 2, bucket 3, bucket 4, bucket 5. So then what you would do is you come to the dream sheet, put a filter on this as well. And select the last year column here. I know it's really hard. Let me zoom in. Select this column here, like I did when I was going through the dream sheet. Clear everything and only select one for last year, for the last year bucket, which is column E. Clear, select all for 1, and there you go. You have your golfers here. But for the rest of the buckets, when we go to look at 2, you want 0 to 2 out of this bucket. You also want 0 to 2 out of the 3rd bucket for the last year buckets, and for the 4th bucket as well, and the 5th, so on and so forth. So those buckets 2 through 5, you want 0 to 2. At least that's what I am projecting to be inside the top 10 using the bucket system. Bucket 5 is bucket 5 is the same. It says 0 to 1, which technically that goes up to, never mind. Don't worry about that. Last year 6, golfers who did not play. I'm projecting 2 to 4 when it comes just to the regular projection, but look at over here in this conservative projection. Same thing we see with bucket 1. Almost the exact same thing. So again, what that tells us is instead of 2 to 4, it's really 1 to 4, because this maximum here is 3. We want a 2-point gap between minimum and maximum. So the new minimum becomes 1 because this conservative projection is 3. But we still hold into account the actual max projection of 4. So I know it's confusing. It's like I'm making rules up as I go, but that's how I've seen it work out, week in and week out. So 1 to 4 last year 6s, we can actually look at this bucket. I just didn't want to waste time looking at the other ones. You want 0 to 2 of those other ones. Here we want 1 to 4. This is where our other 10K golfer is. So this is super interesting. By the way, this bucket, a little bit larger than the last year 1 bucket, where that projection was 1 to 4. We had 13 golfers to choose from. This one has many, many more. Let's take a look. 80 golfers in this bucket, where we normally see about 74, 75. Harder to choose from this one. I don't really see a golfer that I absolutely love. By the way, The flexibility from this bucket a little bit better than last year bucket ones. Last year bucket one, we have to take into account Scotty Scheffler's price tag. If we think the projection is 1 to 4, and we're actually thinking, hey, 4 golfers from that bucket are going to be inside the top 10, doesn't mean you can play 4 golfers from that bucket. Whereas 1 to 4 out of this one, I think you can. You could play 4 guys from this one pretty easily. You just couldn't do the top 4, although you could. I mean, like 10,100, 8,700, 8,600, and 8,400. We're left with $14,200 left, which if you divide that in half, that is $7,100 for each golfer. So you could go Jimmy Walker, Eric Van Rooyen. Yeah, let's get you to 50. So you still can live in the 7K range if you start with those 4 golfers up at the top. I'm not saying you'd select 7K golfers from this if you went that way, but here you could grab the top 4 golfers where you couldn't in the last year bucket one. So this has more flexibility. If you do like 4 golfers from here, by all means, feel comfortable playing them. I'm probably not grabbing any of these top guys. I'm kind of anti Taylor Montgomery until he fixes his golf swing. It looks disgusting. I'm not saying there's anything really technically wrong with it. It just looks gross. So I don't want to play him. It's as simple as that. I don't want to play Taylor Montgomery because the golf swing looks terrible. And then Benny Ann, Minwoo Lee, don't mind any of those guys. I don't mind sprinkling these golfers in with like Scotty Scheffler, and then obviously I liked Adam Scott. So if I want to do 10-9-8, I'm not leaving a lot of money on the table, but I certainly could do it going this route. So keep all of that in mind. Those were your last year bucket projections. Last year bucket's always the longest one. Just to explain everything and get into the projections, let's move on to the next one, last week buckets. Everything's pretty tame in this one for the most part, 0 to 2 all the way down until you get to a missed cut and did not play. So how this looks, you know, the question every single week is, does it matter playing the week before? Does it matter playing, you know, this tournament the year before? Does recent form matter? Does course history matter? Well, we're looking at the last year bucket. Does playing last week matter? Doesn't really appear to be so. Like, it actually looks better if you missed the cut or you just did not play when it comes to projections. Success rate, it's obviously higher. If you top 20 the week before, it's a pretty high success rate. Well, we only have 7 golfers who top 20 last year, where we normally see around 8.5, 9. Anyone in that 20 to 40 range, we actually have more golfers than we typically do. And that kind of bumps up that projection. Decent success rate, not great. And same kind of applies for the rest of these. So let's take a look at the guys who topped 20 last week at the Wells Fargo Championship. If you have any filters on here, you want to make sure you clear them out. And by clearing them out, really you're selecting everyone. So to clear out a filter, you select everyone in the filter. We're going to this last week column. If you want to follow along with me, it's going to be a different column letter for you because the cheat sheet just works that way for you guys versus me. So it's column F. You go in here, clear out everyone or clear out the numbers, and we just select one. So we have 7 golfers that top 20 last week at the Wells Fargo Championship. Tyrrell Hatton, KH Lee, Adam Scott, Seamus Power, Alex Smalley, Michael Kim, Jimmy Walker. Now, my eyes already gravitated towards Adam Scott. Like I said, that Adam Scott's in my dummy lineup. I'm cool with that. I think what I'll probably end up doing is full fading Tyrrell Hatton. I'll play him in one lineup, and it'll be a winner take all. You know, try to get all my entry fees back with the perfect lineup with Tyrrell Hatton. It's just like any of you guys creating a single entry lineup. That's basically what I'll be doing with Tyrrell Hatton and putting him in a winner take all to see if I can recoup all of my entry fees that I'm putting in this week. But this kind of solidifies it for me with Tyrrell Hatton. I don't want to play Tyrrell Hatton. Again, the projection under this bucket is 0 to 2, meaning it's definitely not a bucket you feel comfortable in. The frequency rate measures how many golfers from this bucket every single year finish inside the top 10. and we have a 0 for a minimum. So there have been years where 0 golfers from this bucket finished inside the top 10. And the 77% rate tells me that we have 9 years worth of data. And of those 9 years, 7 times we actually had at least 1 golfer from this bucket inside the top 10. Since salaries were recorded in 2017 for this event, only 1 golfer from this bucket, I should say only 1, a max of 1 golfer every year has been inside in the optimal lineup. So, 2017, 2018, 2019, you skip 2020, 2021, 2022. So we have 5 years worth of salary data. Of those 5 years, 3 years at least, or only, sorry, let's repeat that. Of the 5 years, 3 of those years, we've had 1 golfer from this bucket in the top 10 for each of those years. Not in the top 10, the optimal lineup, sorry. Butchering how to say this. But basically, when you see a max here, that means we've never seen more than 1 from this bucket in any given year be in the optimal lineup. So another way of saying that again is, of the golfers here you see, only choose 1. Don't choose more than 1. Besides the projection saying 0 to 2. Still, don't choose more than 1. I already have my guy, Adam Scott. A lot of you are going to be picking Seamus Power. Some of you are going to be picking Michael Kim. And some, because of contrarian reasons, are going to be going with Tyrrell Hatton off of Scotty Scheffler. Which, hey, by all means, it works out. I go by the buckets. I don't really care about ownership leverage or anything like that. If Tyrrell Hatton's your guy, perfect. Don't play any of these other guys to go with Tyrrell. Just play Tyrrell and that's it. So that's your last week 1 bucket. Just like I did in the last year buckets, we're not going to talk about last year 2, 3, or 4. This is your medium range, and the projections here are 0 to 2. Just to remind you, there is a cheat sheet available. Hopefully you saw that, or you heard that when I was talking about the last year buckets. When you come here, make sure there's a filter on here, and by every bucket that I'm talking about. So if we go to last week 2s, the projection's 0 to 2. We go to last week 3s, the projection here is 0 to 2. So, be cautious. Don't play more than 2 golfers, but, if you do like someone, be comfortable playing them. It's totally fine. And same goes with bucket 4, which there are only 2 golfers. So you can't really play 0. You could play 0 to 2. And these aren't terrible guys. Like Stuart Sink, I've got no issue playing this week. Same goes with the Austin Eckroat. So technically the projection is 0 to 2, and that's fine. It can be 0 to 2. When we look at golfers who missed the cut last week, you can play this bucket in confidence because actually I'm going to remove this. This is the cheat sheet, by the way. I am actually going to use my sheet. So last week 5s are those that missed the cut last week. Jason Day is the top guy. And if you want to play Jason Day, I think it's a fantastic week to play Jason Day. Taylor Montgomery, on the other hand, I'm not a huge fan of Taylor Montgomery. Ever since watching him during the match play, holy crap, does that golf swing suck. Benny Ann, no issue there. Probably pretty cautious on Adam Hadwin. My model he must have been playing some really good golf prior to this calendar year, like January 1st. Because his stat profile just pops a ton. He popped during the Wells Fargo Championship, but I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to play any Adam Hadwin. Sure enough, he missed the cut, so that was perfect. I don't know why the model likes him so much. Has to be strokes gain stats, I imagine. It could be. It's certainly not tournament history, and I don't think it's recent form either. So I don't know why he's popping. So I don't know if this is a good omen for any of you that want to play him. I'm certainly going to stay away from Adam Hadwin. I don't care to play him. But hey, these are some brownie points for Adam Hadwin for being so good in the model. The rest of the guys I'm not going to talk about, but there are some good names here in the 7K range that I do not mind playing whatsoever. Like Davis Riley, I have no issue. Sign me up. Will Gordon, same thing. S.H. Kim, Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin's in my dummy lineup. I love Ben Griffin this week. Aaron Rai, absolutely. I actually don't mind Luke List this week. I really don't know how much trouble he can get into on this golf course. He also hasn't been playing super great lately, so keep that in mind. But hey, not a terrible choice. Mac Hughes, I like. Eric Cole, I like. Adam Schenk, he's in my my dummy lineup. I like Adam Schenk this week. A lot of good golfers. I've got no issue playing any of these guys. Even some of these 6K golfers. So this is a good range. Remember, the projection is 1 to 3. You can see that here, the last week 5 bucket, 1 to 3. Still shows up with the conservative projections over there. So be comfortable playing that. Let's move on to the next one. Last week 6s. These are golfers who did not play last week at the Wells Fargo Championship. This is another one of those, hey, it's a 2 to 4 bucket, but no, it's not. The conservative projection over here for maximum is 3. That automatically drops down the minimum to 1. So how this projection now reads is 1 to 4 for golfers who did not play last week. So when we take a look at those golfers, Scotty Scheffler is going to be one of them, obviously. Then we have Hideki Matsuyama, Maverick McNeely, Tom Hoagie, Minwoo Lee, Aaron Wise, Christian Bezain, just to cover the 8K golfers and above. 1 to 4 is a great projection. I mean, Scotty's just my guy. I think I'm always going to go with Scotty over the rest of these guys. But kind of gives a good argument for Hideki Matsuyama. If you didn't, be cautious with Hideki. There's still a lingering neck issue that's going on with him, but he is showing up in some of these buckets that you do want to play. So if it's not Scotty and you want to be contrarian, I think Hideki is actually a pretty decent pivot when it comes to the buckets, not because of ownership, but because of buckets and salary relief. So I would consider that. I would consider Hideki Matsuyama this week over Scotty Scheffler. He's in a lot of the buckets. Like, he was in the last year bucket with him. He's obviously in the last week bucket. He's going to be in the course history buckets together. So kind of a strong case to be made for Hideki Matsuyama. Again, I'm not talking about the rest of the guys, but when you go on the cheat sheet and you go over all this, remember the projections 1 to 4. So you can pick up to 4 golfers, and it would be pretty simple. A lot of these guys are 6K and below. So you wanted to start with Scotty, you could find 3 other guys down here if you truly wanted to. You probably don't, but maybe 2. You could go with 2, and then you'd have 3 golfers from this bucket. It fits under the projections. So keep that in mind. That is your last week bucket. So we've covered last year, last week. Time to get into the tournament history buckets. So I covered this at the beginning of this segment, the bucket system. I also covered it in the beginning of the preview. Remember, we only really have 2 years of course history at this event for TPC Craig Ranch, because the years prior were Trinity Forest Golf Club in 2019, 2018, and then Las Colinas 2013, or I should say 2017 back to 2013. So there were 5 years where there was Las Colinas, and then it was Trinity Forest Golf Club and TPC Craig Ranch. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the bucket system. Do you want to use tournament history and go back to 2013, or do you just want to use course history? If you're going to use course history, here's what I recommend. So on the cheat sheet, if you go to the bucket system and we take a look at course history, it's going to say course history on your side. I'm not going to change this. This is a community page. I'm just going to keep it like this because I update this every single week. It's just easier for me to update it without having to think about, oh, I need to change this to course history. I need to change this to tournament history, yada, yada, yada. So it's just going to say course history, but just so you know, this is really tournament history. What you see here is what I have on my side. What I would suggest you to do is forget about the minimums. Do not even think about the minimums. Block these off. Don't look at it. Only look at the max projections. And remember, we always round up. There's always a 2-point gap. So this first one, yeah, if I say ignore that, you're going to be like, well, 0.5, I round up, that's 1. No, round up to 2. Remember, there's a 2-point gap. Just consider this all zeros. Like your minimums are just straight up zeros. But always round up. And if it's less than 1, round it up to 2. Or I should say less than 1. If it's 1, then round it up to 2. So no matter what, just to reiterate, no matter what, the minimum max projection is 2. Okay? Does not matter anymore what's in the minimum projection. If you're going by course history, which I have no issue with you doing, just keep that in mind. Okay, now that I've confused you beyond belief, let's go ahead and get into these tournament history buckets. So golfers who have the best tournament history here, I only have 4 of those golfers in the field this week. And this is like top 20 average finishing position. 0 to 2 is the actual projection. 4 golfers. I don't even know who they are. Well, KH Lee's going to be one of them, right? Tom Kim. KH Lee is not one of them. That's interesting. But Tom Kim, Benny Yan, Christian Bezuidenhout, and Davis Riley. Guess what? They've all played here one time before. Maybe Benny Yan played more than once. He didn't play here last year, but he has a 5 for course history. I imagine he probably only played this event once. But the other 3 golfers definitely have only played this once. And that's why their course history, tournament history is so good. And quite frankly, you could actually use this as course history and be just totally fine with it because they would just be in this bucket regardless. So 0 to 2, though, is the projection. It's not a very high projection. It's not something to be confident in. If anything, maybe just pick one golfer at most and then move on. I'm going to load this up with course history 2. This is definitely the highest projection for maximum, but just like every other bucket we've been going over, our conservative max projection over here drops it down. So really this is a 1 to 4 bucket once again. Let's take a look at the course history 2 guys. We have Scotty Scheffler. We also have KH Lee in here. And Hideki Matsuyama. Obviously we're covering Hideki and Scotty, like they're in a lot of the same buckets together. Maybe this is a Hideki week. Maybe. Here's my guy, Adam Scott. So my dummy lineup is Scotty, Adam Scott, Ryan Palmer's in it. Yeah, Ryan Palmer is in it. I also have Matty Schmid, which is not in there. Ben Griffin and Adam Schenk. I don't see any of those guys there. So I have 3. Guess what? Max projection is 4. So I still, my dummy lineup is just, I guess I just keep it, right? The perfect dummy lineup. You pick up to 4 though. So if you wanted Scotty, Adam Scott, Ryan Palmer, I mean, you could add in, I really don't like adding in the same price tag. I don't mind Charlie Hoffman. I probably wouldn't go there, but like Scott Stalling, that's $7,700. You can make it work. You could make it work. If you win a 10, 9, and 4 7s, you can make that work. So not a terrible play. Going on to the next one, tournament history 3. This is a 1 to 3 bucket, and that still holds true even with the conservative projection over there. So I'll just take out 2, put in course history 3, and Jason Day is at the top of this one. Seamus Power, Hoagie, Jaeger, Spawn. I don't really like this bucket. Probably my least favorite one with the golfers that are in it. 1 to 3 is the projection. So picking out 1, which I mean, if I'm picking one, if I'm telling you to play one guy, it's probably Jason Day or it's probably Seamus Power. There's no way I'm feeling comfortable telling you to play one of these other guys just because. I don't like this at all. You want to know a name that I would not mind playing? CT Pan. Did he miss the cut last week? I can't remember. He did. Made enough birdies though. Like I didn't have an issue. He looked like he was going to make the cut. I don't know. He could probably do worse than CT Pan. I think he's going to be making his way back soon. And he was a quality golfer before he got injured. Gabe Brown was at the Wells Fargo Championship, and he said that he didn't look sharp at all. He had medical tape on his wrist, so something to be leery of. I don't know. I don't mind playing someone like CT Pan though. Cam Champ, I also don't mind going back to, or even like a Matthew Neesmith or Aaron Rye is probably the choice, right? I'd feel more comfortable playing Aaron Rye than most of these guys. Even Steven Yeager. I like the idea of playing Steven Yeager, so yeah. It's an interesting bucket. Because it really makes you choose. If you don't go day, like obviously I like going Scotty Scheffler and then Adam Scott. If I do that, I kind of have to pass by Jason Day and Seamus Power and probably Tom Hoagie, and then choose one guy from down here. And I care for most of these guys. One note, Justin Lauer, 40th in my model. Pretty decent bent grass stats. I'm kind of liking Lauer. Not super great strokes gain stats. Off the tees, terrible. Approach, not super great. Putting is what saves them. I mean, I don't have an issue going to someone like Justin Lauer, but great. Anyways, 1 to 3 is the projection from this bucket. So choose 1 to 3 golfers. I think that's fine. Not going to talk about tournament history 4 or 5. You can go ahead and check that out on the cheat sheet. Tournament history 6. We want 1 to 3, but actually this is another one of those buckets. So although it says 1 to 3, remember, round down with this one, round up with that one. So 2.11 goes to 3, 1.26 goes to 1, but our conservative max projection over here is 1.92, meaning 2 is the actual, the conservative max projection. That drops the minimum down to 0 now. You want a 2-point gap between the conservative max projection and the minimum, but we still keep on the max projection. So this is really 0 to 3. These are golfers who have never played the AT&T Byron Nelson before. This includes course history. This includes tournament history. So guys who've never played this event before. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong bucket. I was like, wait a minute. I put the wrong filter on. Course history 6s. Tyrrell Hatton, Taylor Montgomery. Taylor Montgomery's a rookie. Min Woo Lee, technically a rookie. Alex Smalley, I believe, is a rookie. S.H. Kim, Stevens, most of these are rookies. A lot of firepower, by the way. Like, here's some names I'll just tell you that I like. I don't mind playing Hatton this week. I probably won't. Min Woo Lee, I like. I don't mind jumping back on the Alex Smalley bandwagon. S.H. Kim, I like. Sam Stevens, like Ben Griffin is in my dummy lineup, so I'll go there. No issue. I like Eric Cole. I don't know about Higo. I don't mind it, but probably won't. Same goes with Thompson. MJ Duffy. Don't mind MJ Duffy. Vincent Norman, no problem there. I skip Hall, probably skip Long, probably skip Eckroat. I like Gerard. Matty Schmid is in the dummy lineup as well. So, hey, that all works out. I've got Schmid and Griffin from here. Is Shank here at all? I think my dummy lineup is perfect. I think it matches the... If I built it through the optimizer, I don't think it breaks. That's just how good I am with this stuff. Already knew. I actually didn't even know these guys' stats. That was just the eyeball test. So it works out. I also like Carl Yuan. I like Stuart Sink. I wouldn't mind playing Chad Ramey this week. I like Augusto Nunez. I really like Carson Young, despite not rating out very well in the model. He's been rating out really well in previous. It's catching up to him, I guess. His bad play. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the rest of them, but I just went through a bunch of names that you could fit in your lineups, especially if you started with Scotty Scheffler. That covers your tournament history / course history buckets. Next one to talk about are the recent form buckets. So another one of those questions, does recent form matter more than, course history or tournament history? I would probably say yes, because most of your buckets for the recent form, like the projections, are actually, no. This week is different. Last week, you definitely wanted good recent form. This week doesn't look it doesn't look like recent form really matters that much. It's pretty watered down. Let's just go over the projections really quick. 0 to 2 for your really good recent form. These are guys that have averaged a top 20 finish over the last 7 weeks. Recent form 2, at 20 to 40 range. Projection is 1 to 3. Recent form 3 is at 40 to 60 range. This is kind of like middle of the pack, 1 to 4. Recent form 4 is 1 to 3. And then it's 0 to 2 for the remaining buckets. Although recent form 6, golfers who haven't played in the last 6 weeks, not a really good bucket to choose from. So knowing that, 0 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 3. Okay, I can remember that. So the first one is 0 to 2. Scheffler, Kuchar, Vincent Norman. So yeah, I think if I'm going Scheffler, I'm probably not playing the other two, but hey, Matt Kuchar isn't a terrible choice either. But I wouldn't play all 3 of those guys together, which is kind of funny. I think Ryan Henson sent me, I think he sent me a Twitter message that has him in it, right? He went with Scheffler. Oh, he does not have Kuchar, but he does have Vincent Norman in it. Hey, it works out, Ryan. That works out. Moving on to the next one. Recent form 2s. 1 to 3 is the projection here. There's Hideki Matsuyama. Like, in all honesty, the pivots from Scotty Scheffler to Hatton or Matsuyama are proven to be pretty logical. You know, I don't really so much, again, I don't really care about ownership. But when it comes to the buckets, they're in very opposite buckets. Like, well, not opposite, but for Hideki, he's in some of the buckets with Matsuyama or with Scheffler. And then he's obviously not in this, or he's not in the bucket for the recent form stat as Scotty Scheffler. So now it's like, that one's a 0 to 2 bucket, meaning 0 could be inside the top 10. The one that I just covered, the recent form 1 bucket with Scotty Scheffler in it, Matt Kuchar, and Vincent Norman. This one's 1 to 3. There's probably a little bit more trust in this bucket to choose either Hatton or Matsuyama. Yeah, it makes it challenging. Very, very much so. But my guy Adam Scott is in this bucket, which is perfect. That's definitely a golfer I do want to choose this week. He really could be the one guy that I want. Remember, the projection's 1 to 3. Yeah. Moving on to the next bucket, recent form 3s. A few more golfers here, and the projection is 1 to 4. Remember that, 1 to 4. I think it's 1 to 4 because there's just not like a ton of good golfers in this bucket. Very, high volatile golfers. Jason Day being one of them. Seamus Power, Taylor Montgomery. Remember, I don't mind going to like a Steven Yeager. I also don't mind Davis Riley. I don't mind Scott Stallings. Some of these guys I've already talked about. Let's see. Can't remember. What was I just talking about with my dummy lineup? Griffin is in it. So Ben Griffin. Do we have... Oh, Adam Schenk is in it. Ryan Palmer, Matty Schmidt. Ryan Palmer, I can't remember how much he cost, but he's not here. I don't see Matty Schmidt. That's okay though. I have 2 guys. Remember, the projection's 1 to 4. I could add Steven Yeager if I wanted to. And then recent form 4 is also 1 to 3. There's my Matty Schmidt. And is Ryan Palmer in this? Where the hell is Ryan Palmer? There he is. Yeah. So there we go. 2. So 1 to 3. Dude. The dummy lineup has all of my projections in it. Perfect. Just I'm one lineup in all of my contests now. This is a pretty decent bucket. You can easily find 1 to 3 golfers to fit in your lineups here. They're all pretty reasonable price tags, making it really easy to roster any of these guys. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. We're not going to really talk about recent form 5s. Yeah, no real reason here. Remember, projection 0 to 2. And then recent form 6s, not a super good bucket to choose from, so probably stay away from this one, but there you go. Vince Whaley is probably the only guy that I probably consider like playable. The only guy that's ranked under 100. I don't know where the hell Vince Whaley's been, but he's back. Interesting. Okay, cool. Those are your recent form buckets. So the next two buckets aren't a part of like the core buckets when it comes to bucket system, but it's definitely worth looking at. We went over the salaries kind of in the pass optimal and GPP winning lineup segment of the preview video. But we can dive into it a little bit more here. Two golfers in the 10K range. Projection is 0-2. It is Scotty Scheffler and Tyrrell Hatton. I got no issue playing any of them. The next one, though, is very interesting. The projection for the 9K golfers to finish inside the top 10 is 1-3. So I think, and the bucket system thinks, somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers from the 9K range will finish inside the top 10. That makes rostering Scotty Scheffler a little bit more challenging because that could be Hideki Matsuyama. You know, obviously we were talking about Matsuyama. He fits in a lot of the buckets that Scotty Scheffler does. So that becomes a little bit more challenging. And if you want to look at salaries, by the way, make sure you've got no filters on. We can sort salary from top to bottom. You know, we talked about Scotty and Tyrrell. Now we're on to the 9K range. You know, 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket, I think, are going to be inside the top 10. So it kind of tells you want to play at least one. Now, thankfully, my dummy lineup has Adam Scott in it. I like Adam Scott this week, but I can make a case for any of those 9K golfers, really. I like Matsuyama. I also really like Tom Kim. Jason Day, I'm pretty lukewarm about. I mean, I thought he should have performed so much better at the Wells Fargo Championship. He didn't look super great there. Maybe he was a little rusty. I don't know. Probably more cautious on him. H. Lee, I'm not. I don't think back-to-back is in his cards, but I would have told you last year, back-to-back wasn't in his cards. Like, don't play a defending champion. And obviously he won. By the way, I did take down a Nagels Bagels contest without having KH Lee in my lineup. I had Jordan Spieth. So I can see the same thing kind of happening with Scotty Scheffler this week. But yeah, the 9K range, 1 to 3. Yeah, I think you have to play someone from the 9K range. I think you just have to. Even if you do go Scotty, you still have to play someone from the 9K range. 8K range. That's 1 to 2. But remember, if this number over here isn't higher than 2, we got to drop the minimum to 0. So despite it being 1 to 2, it's really 0 to 2 because you still want that 2-point buffer between minimum and maximum. So then when we look at the 8K range, quite frankly, I don't care for any of these 8K golfers. Like I'm not trying to force any of these guys in my lineups. There are some definitely capable golfers, definitely very talented golfers. Like Seamus, at the beginning of the year, the fall swing, he's your stud. He was leading the FedEx Cup, points list. That was before the big tournaments came in and your big names came in, like your John Rahms, your Scotty Schefflers, to take that mantle away from Seamus. But in a weaker strength of field, he thrives. So why not? And he played pretty decent at the Wells Fargo. Got no issue playing him. Probably a little bit more cautious on like Maverick McNeely. I already told you I think Taylor Montgomery's golf swing is disgusting. I can't play a golfer that has a disgusting golf swing until they prove to me that their results have been decent recently, which they haven't been with him. I do like Benny Ann. I don't mind going to Benny Ann. Hoagie's the same way. I don't mind playing him. Minwoo Lee is 44th in my model. He's going to be higher than a lot of other people's models that have strokes gain stats and world, ranking points. And I mean, I do too, but the world ranking points. But I'm not incorporating any strokes gain stats from any of the other events. Like raw strokes gain stats, that makes sense. That's just looking at baselines. So obviously, if Minwoo Lee is excelling against the baseline, then obviously he's a very capable golfer. Now, there is a thing coming from like a Euro Tour event to a PGA Tour event. It just, the competition's better, the pressure is higher. So that's why I think we haven't really seen very good results from Minwoo Lee this year, but he's a very capable golfer, very good. Aaron Wise is coming back from kind of a mental health hiatus. So he took a little break to recharge the batteries. You know, I don't know if it was because of the pressure on the PGA Tour that he had to take a little bit of a break, but it was due to mental health rest. So you got to keep that in mind. Play him with caution or play him with Jubilee, I guess. You know, maybe he's going to come back and just stomp on everyone's throat. I got no issue playing Aaron Wise this week if you wanted to, you know, be risky. I like Jaeger. I don't like Hadwin. I don't care for Spawn, although we are in Texas, and this is a Texas, well, you play Spawn at Texas events, so this would be a good time to play Spawn. Zeidenhout, he had a top 20 finish here last year. I've got no issue playing him. Same goes with Davis Riley. I like him. Now we're going into the 7K range. But for the 8K range, you have capable golfers. It's just the projection 0 to 2. If you don't want to play an 8K golfer, buckets are they're on your side. It's 0 to 2. For 7K golfers, 1 to 3 is your projection. I'm not going to go through all of those. 0 to 2 high 6Ks, 0 to 2 low 6Ks, but kind of leaning on the 1. You know, don't play more than one low 6K golfer, and that's anyone below 6,500. So 6,500 and up, the max is 2. I wouldn't put 3 6K golfers in your lineup. If you do, it would be 2 golfers from the high 6K and 1 golfer from the low 6K. But I wouldn't play more than 2 6K golfers in your lineups. All right, last thing to talk about, strokes gain buckets. If you're unfamiliar with how I do strokes gain, I again encourage you to watch the bucket system video that I have linked in the description of this one, the one that says bucket system explained. Because I look at off the tee and putting primarily. I don't really care what's in approach. Your strokes gain 1 bucket has all stats positive. So that's off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. So if you really wanted to find your better golfers, they would be in this bucket. Strokes gain 2 could have negative approach golfers, but it has positive off the tee and positive putting. Same applies for strokes gain 3, but this is positive putting and positive off the tee, negative putting. Could have a positive approach. These are basically team no putts. So your really good ball strikers tend to be in this group. Scotty Scheffler's in this group. So you all know how to do the projections by now. If not, just rewind this video and see what I did with all the other projections when it comes to the other buckets. 0 to 2 strokes gain 1, 0 to 2 strokes gain 2, 2 to 5 strokes gain 3, 1 to 2, but technically that's 0 to 2 strokes gain 4, 0 to 2 strokes gain 5. There are 6 golfers in the strokes gain 6 bucket, but probably not worth playing. I mean, I think it's just not worth playing. One quick note, the conservative max projection is 4, where the actual projection over here is 5 for the max, but the minimum already rounds down to 2. So we don't have to do anything with this. This still stays 2 to 5. And of course, all these projections will be in the optimizer. So we can look at some of these. Let's look at the top 3 buckets. We can look at the top 4 buckets for strokes gain stats. Here's the wonderful thing that I do when it comes to the cheat sheet as well as my sheet. You can sort by strokes gain stats, and you can see they're all color coordinated. See how it works perfectly? So strokes gain 1 is this dark green color, strokes gain 2 is this light green, and then goes into yellow for strokes gain 3. 0 to 2 for strokes gain 1. Hatton and Matsuyama. Remember, I mean, these are perfect pivots from Scotty Scheffler. But I also like Ben Griffin down here for like a good 7K golfer. Same goes with Scott Stallings, by the way. 0 to 2 is a really good projection. It really kind of forces you to think. This isn't a bucket that it's telling me I need at least 1. And if we go back to it, we've never seen more than 1 inside the top 10 from this bucket. And there's never been more than 1 in an optimal lineup. 33% frequency rate of one of these guys being in the optimal lineup. And for top 5 success, not super high, 9%. And haven't had more than 1 top 5 finish from this bucket. We do have 9 this year, where we normally see just north of 7. So maybe that helps, at least finding 1, if not 2. but I kind of like this projection, and it really forces you to think which golfer, like which ones do you want in your lineup if you're going to have two, or which one do you want in your lineup? Because Hatton, Matsuyama, Kim, Day already are hard decisions to make. But then you've got, you know, the rest of these guys. I would probably just cast out Cameron Percy. Just don't worry about that. But Grayson Sig isn't a terrible 7K choice. Neither is Griffin or Stallings. So this is interesting. Strokes gained 2. 0 to 2 is the projection here as well. And we have 15 this year where we normally see around 20. So keep that in mind. We normally see the least amount of times we've seen inside the top 10 from this bucket are 2. We've seen at least 2 every single year. Again, we have less golfers in that bucket this year than we normally do, so maybe that is cause for concern. 0 to 2. Strokes gained 2. Scott, Taylor. I mean, if you look at this bucket, there's a good reason why you should pump your brakes. But hey, I have Scott in my dummy lineup, and I have Matty Schmid. That's it. So I've got my 2 covered. Dude, my dummy lineup is so good. And no one else is in it. Don't have Shank. Don't have Palmer. Don't have Ben Griffin. Ben Griffin was in the top one. It's so good. So we go into the next one. And for this one, it's 2 to 5, remember? So let's look. I've got Scotty Scheffler. Got Scotty Scheffler in my lineup. Is Shank in this one? Or is Shank a 4? Shank, I think, is a 4. I think I have Palmer, right? 2 to 5 is what we're looking for. And I think, yeah, Ryan Palmer's right there. And I think Shank is down here, right? Can't find him. Where you at, Adam? I'm just like I'm just looking at my, so $7,300 is what his price tag is. So I don't see him there. I don't see him here. Oh no. I've got 3 strokes gained 2. I gotta change them. Doesn't work out. That's a bummer. We came across the first issue with my dummy lineup. Bummer. Anyways, 2 to 5. So maybe I switch it from, so we were Ryan Palmer. Maybe I just change $7,300 golfers and try to find someone in here. Maybe. I don't know. But 2 to 5. I think you could probably find 2 to 5. I mean, Steven Yeager seems like a pretty good choice. Maybe I transfer Ben Griffin up to him somehow. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Not a big deal. 2 to 5. Strokes gained 3s. There's a lot of golfers here to choose from. A lot of good names. And then 0 to 2 strokes gained 4. But I believe it's 1 to 2. Remember, we need that 2-point buffer. So the minimum drops down to 0. But there are some good names here. Matt Kuchar, Seamus, Hoagie, Eric Cole, Mark Hubbard. I don't mind Mark Hubbard. Maybe that's who I'll switch my... Oh, you know what? I actually have $200 to play with. So I could go from Palmer up to Mark Hubbard. Probably a safer choice anyways, right? Works out. Just works out perfect. Okay. That's going to cover the strokes gained stats. I'm not going to go over strokes gained 5. Dylan Woo's here, by the way. Lots of people love Dylan Woo this week. He did play pretty decent last week. Can't remember if he was in the optimal lineup or not. No, he wasn't. But he was in a good or he did well. Strokes gained 5, 0 to 2, by the way, for your projection. So yeah, that covers the strokes gained stats. I feel like throughout this video I just fell hard. Got tired really quick. I think that's going to cover the preview. It's going to cover the strokes gained stats. The strokes gained buckets, I should say, or just the bucket system. See, I can't even speak straight. Can't even say things correctly. Can't even speak straight. Can't even see straight. Can't say things correctly. I'm losing it. So appreciate you all watching this segment of the bucket system. Also appreciate all of you watching the full entirety of the preview. So I'm not even going to do a giveaway reminder. Go check the beginning of the video. I'm just going to end it right here. Thank you all for watching. Oh, geez. Look at this. I'm a rookie. You go ahead and put this and say, thank you all for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.